Oh God!
me.
Who is that? Oh,
Okay, hey, crack him if you got him.
crack him if you got him.
We're gonna be doing a lot of that if Kellen Moore becomes the head coach. I'll tell you that much. We're gonna be doing a lot of drinking.
I'll just say
Kellen Limp Dick Moore.
Kellen Moore is probably. I know he's not necessarily. I think the odds are that Dion is the highest odds right now. That's just Vegas. People are betting, you know. But I think Kellen Moore actually has the highest potential chance. And so I'm just trying to prepare us for that.
It scares me because I agree with you, AJ. I completely agree. It just makes so much sense for him to come back to Dallas and be the head coach. It really does. And I hate it.
And we already know his history. We already know what happened. So I'm just going to try to take you through my kind of train of thought while I think about this. Something happened, obviously, where Mike McCarthy said, hey, or something. This is a potential. Hey, I think I can call this offense just as good as or better than Kellen Moore. Me and him have a different point of view on a few things. You got to pick me or him, Jerry. Jerry picked Mike McCarthy. The other thing is that Kellen Moore came in and said, hey, I think I'm better off in LA or testing the free market. Either way, something happened there and Kellen Moore left the Cowboys after a relatively fairly successful career running the offense. Definitely some negatives, but he, again, as soon as he left the Cowboys, he's now played for two other football teams, and you can see when he plays with Philadelphia. Mind you, I don't know. I think all four of us would not have a bad chance of calling plays for Philadelphia if we had a chance.
Push. Give it to Saquon. Push.
But all that being
Saquon, push, or AJ Brown. Just pick one, and that's your play chart.
I'm just rolling a D6 every time, and I have 6 plays, and that's the one. But I think for Jerry, it's a super safe move. He's worked with Kellen Moore. He probably can control Kellen Moore. Or I always hate talking like Jerry's this Palpatine, but it's fun. But just as an owner, he knows that Kellen Moore will work with him to make what he wants happen in those areas that he wants. But of course, he's going to have to come out and win. He has the history with the Cowboys. He gets to come back and say, hey, I get to take this back on my own. I believe Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore probably ran a very similar, it seemed like they ran a very similar offense. I didn't see much difference, really. It didn't feel like, right? So at the end of the day, he's just the pick that would be kind of a bit of a Band-Aid. Give him a chance. It's Jerry's 2-year deal that he gets for a low amount of money, and probably that, whatever it is, I think like $7 to $8 million range, or even lower, where he's not going to have to pay too much. He gets the 2-for-1 deal, offensive coordinator and head coach, and then he can bring back Zimmer or someone else on defense for another 1 year. Not the scenario we want, but that's what I think Kellen Moore brings, is the Band-Aid type of scenario where we're kind of reaching the end of that. We need a coach to step in and give us a long-term plan with this team before a bunch of the guys who we just signed for multiple year contracts, now they're hitting the re-sign period. But that's the unfortunate thing that I think Kellen Moore is made for the Cowboys.
Jason Garrett era 2.0 that's just all it should be called, as if Kellen Moore comes back.
Like Cowboys Beat said, and this is the final thing I'll say about him, because I'm not arguing for this.
Yeah, we get it. You love
it.
Kellen Moore.
It seems the most likely.
Seems the most likely. Yeah. But he's not going to be a motivator, as much as you can tell from looking at someone. And I'm 40 years old, so I've had a lot of experiences watching people creeping on them, watching what their actual habits are, following them home from work, And I've just he doesn't excite. He's not exciting. There's no emotion. Is that good or bad? It's TBD. But I feel like we want a guy. And I'll always go back to Dan Campbell, right? Coach of the Lions. Say that? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah. He fires me up. And maybe they're just putting out good social media content. I don't know.
But here's the thing with Kellen Moore. I don't believe that Kellen Moore is going to be the next coach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that the Cowboys were high on him as an offensive coordinator, And then ultimately, if they really wanted Kellen Moore around, they could have said, no, Mike, we really like Kellen Moore. We think that he's going to be the next guy. But they just said, hey, make your own decision. And Mike made his own decision, and he ended up getting rid of Kellen Moore, and, more power to him. Kellen Moore looks like he's doing good in Philadelphia. He's not. They have, Jalen Hurts does not look good this year.
Yeah.
The passing concepts are very basic. And this is what I do love, that, last 2 years, Jalen Hurts hasn't looked good. And it's Brian Johnson, it's Kellen Moore. But then when we say, hey, Kellen Moore wasn't good, and like Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan, they weren't good, they're like, oh, you're just making excuses. Well, at least he was productive with those guys, but that's besides the point. Here's one thing I will say, and this is where I would give it a chance if it was Kellen Moore. I don't believe that with Dak Prescott and him having heavy influence over this offense attached to Kellen Moore, that the passing concepts are going to be as bland as they are in Philadelphia. And I do think the run scheme would be significantly better in Dallas this time around than it was the last time around, due to the fact that, Kellen Moore has been around Jeff Stoutland, who's a tremendous offensive line coach, run game coordinator. And I think that there is going to be a lot of influence on Kellen from Jeff Stoutland when it comes to the run game. So not my number one choice, but I truly don't think this is going to be the guy.
Yeah,
The thing that scares me about it is Mike McCarthy was hired January 7th, 2020, right? When they hired McCarthy, it was right away. Every day that the Cowboys go without hiring a coach, it's like they're clearly waiting for somebody that's still in the postseason race, right? So it just makes me nervous. And because it's the most, the coach that I would hate the most to get hired is Kellen Moore. So that's kind of where my head is right now. I'd take Deion Sanders a million times over Kellen Moore. I really would. So I'm just hoping it's not Kellen Moore.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly tap in on this before we move on to the next one. I think like with Kellen Moore, and we said it feels like it's the closest thing to probability. Jerry Jones, when you saw him on his acting debut for Landman, and he talks about doing stuff with his kids and building careers.
Spoiler.
With his kids. Well, I'm not telling you how it ends, but he's talking about doing stuff with his kids. He does look at some of these players as like his own. So Kellen Moore is one of his guys. So having them go out as a journeyman, find some different stuff, and then come back to the Cowboys with open arms. Kellen Moore protects the investment with Dak Prescott that they're paying for. Dak Prescott's not going to have to completely change his style. He has a familiarity with Kellen Moore. I agree with what you were just saying, Cowboys beat, about some of his concepts might be a little bit different. We don't know if Kellen Moore had the ability to do all the plays that he wants. Maybe Big Mike called audibles. Like, we just don't know, right? So I do think that maybe learning a little bit on the outside, they're going to look at this as the Dallas Cowboys organization and say, look, Kellen Moore, we're going to get him for cheap. He's going to protect our offensive investments. The staff, we're not going to have to fire all of these people that know Kellen Moore because Dion or whoever else is going to come in and wipe the coaching staff off. These guys know Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is going to probably want to keep them around. We're going to get somebody else that comes in for culture, like a Jason Witten, to be on staff and get him coached up. I just wanted to throw a hot buzz name out there, but
yeah.
So yeah, it does seem like a lot of signs are going to be pointed towards Kellen Moore, but not the most exciting option. I'd be very choked. It'd be a hard offseason.
Congrats on all of us being adults and not calling him vanilla pudding, which all of us should have.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, it comes back to the team and you get the VP moniker.
Yeah, you're back. You come back to the Cowboys, you're back to being vanilla pudding.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but hey, maybe just not tapioca either. Okay. This is your selection. I hope I get it right here. At Cowboys Beat. And just, before we jump into this one, that's where you guys can find. It's Chris, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't dox them. It's Cowboys Beat.
No, I just want to get a little familiar.
Oh, yeah, by the way, I must say this. So my Wi-Fi password for my new place has the words Eagles suck in it.
Okay.
I live right outside of Philadelphia, so all my friends are Eagles fans. So when they come over and they ask for the Wi-Fi, here it is.
So it started. It's Eagles. You said Eagles suck, and then it's obviously followed by giant cock. Like that can only be the only answer on that.
That's hilarious. Hey, if they want it, they gotta type it. That's the
Type it in.
rule.
Type it in.
That